Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 City of Pittsburgh Commission meeting to order. Please join us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is public input, and before I open that up and invite Pastor Chambers out, I have a few instructions. Sorry. Just because we have such a lovely crowd here this evening. Public input is an opportunity for our citizens to share with the Commission concerns or ideas or issues that they have related to the business of the city. It's not a town hall. It's not meant to be a town hall. It's not meant to be a public forum. We do ask that as you come up, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. State your name and your address. Because there's such a large crowd tonight, I'm going to do things a little bit different. I would ask, first of all, anyone who would like to come forward on public input who's not related to the zoning request for Woodland Terrace, come up first. So if you're not here related to that, please come first when we're ready. Sorry, that's all right. And then following that, we will invite those individuals related to the zoning application that are within 200 feet of that address. You should know who you are because you would have received a letter, but if you do not, I do have that list. And then the third group will be those that just have an interest in sharing information related to that zoning application. So I will go ahead and open public input and invite Pastor Chambers to come forward.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, and Happy New Year to everyone, and great to see you here tonight. May we pray? Father, we thank you for this new year that you have given to us. Thank you that for our commissioners as they continue to work together to help lead, guide, and direct our city. We ask your blessings upon them and our new appointed mayor, that your spirit will guide them in all decisions made this evening and throughout the year. We give thanks for the dedication of all of our city leaders, employees, and for the job that they do by keeping our city a place of comfort and a place that welcomes all people. Bless and protect them. May peace and harmony be with us tonight. And we ask you also to please bless the people of Pittsburgh and keep us safe during these cold winter days. And help us to be good neighbors to all. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Right. If there's anyone that has public input not related to agenda item B, yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, name and address.
AJ Kohler, 10758 Northwest Lawton Road. I am a communication student at Pittsburgh State University, and last year I was assigned to do a short video presentation over a topic of my choice. I decided to choose my topic to be over the pit bull ban because my family took in a dog recently at that time who was just dropped off by our house. And I started this documentary by going over research, and I found out that pit bulls are a slang term that encompasses 5 dog breeds. And the stigma around them comes from their use in dog fighting and bites. But from what I've known is that German Shepherds apparently also bite about as often, and we don't have a German Shepherd ban in the city of Pittsburgh. Nor do I think we should, for the record. I then talked with Animal Control Officer Jason Denny, who told me now that how the bans work and how it's enforced. Basically, it is up to citizen reporting, which has led to some citizens reporting dogs whose owner they may have a grudge with. I also learned that the city will sometimes take these dogs to a vet, and if it even has a little bit of one of the pit bull breeds, the dog is no longer allowed in the city of Pittsburgh. And that's basically kind of like a modern one-drop rule. And I then talked with Jasmine Kyle, who is the head of the Southeast Kansas Humane Society. Close to 1/3 of their dogs are pit bull or pit bull mixes, whose stays are 1 to 2 years, which is a very long time for a dog to be at a shelter. Not only would lifting this ban free up resources for the shelter, but it'd make dogs like Oscar and Ronald and Petey have a better shot at being adopted. Jasmine also told me that this ban creates the very problem it's trying to solve. Basically, if people have pit bulls in Pittsburgh, they have to isolate the dogs, and if the dogs become isolated, well, they're more likely to bite, you know. Lastly, nearby communities like Parsons, Frontenac, and Fort Scott all have replaced their pit bull bans with violent dog bans, which aren't breed specific, and bites haven't risen since there was an incident in Parsons where some dogs did take down a smaller dog, but the owners were also in violation of the violent dog ban because the dogs weren't on a leash. I'm hoping, commissioners, that you will work with the Humane Society to find an acceptable violent dog ban and whatever terms may need to be inputted for that. Have a great evening, and thank you for listening to me.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'd like to just say that I'm here to, Christy Bittner, 1508 Bittner Court, Pittsburgh. I'd like to just say a few words about the child care facilities that we're talking about tonight.
Christy, I think you came in a little late. We kind of have a process tonight.
Well, no, this is about the Washington School. This is not about the other.
Okay.
So I'd like to just have a few questions about the Washington School grant. First is, who is the licensed child care provider for the Washington School Daycare Preschool facility? And if it's the Washington School and they're not the provider, well, they cannot open their doors for child care without a licensed provider, correct? And then if it's not Washington School, why did the CDBG grant application have Washington School listed as the provider? It was stated in December that Washington School is not a daycare provider. So who made the decision to name them as the provider in the documentation? Mr. Byers said last month that we, quote, we are responsible for making sure there is a provider and they will contract through us, unquote. So I'd like to know, well, who is us and what contract is required as a provider? So after the vote on the December bids failed, Mr. Byers stated that, quote, it means there's going to be a delay in the opening of school in August, unquote. According to the CDBG grant, the date for completion is July 31st, 2025. So are the consequences for not meeting the timeline of the grant? And is the Kansas Commerce Department aware of the discrepancies in the grant? So why was the commission in December presented a bid documentation that was only half completed for the Washington School preschool building? And in December, there were 10 bids. For tonight, there's 17 bids listed on page 58, and on page 59, there's 12 bids, and there's 5 bids that were not on page 59. And the bids left off were $220,000 amount. And then the 17 bids equal $1,150,168.26. So without a complete bid document, there's really no idea whether the project is going to be over or under budget projections, correct? And so between December and January, there was almost $500,000 difference in all the bids being presented. So is the CDBG money strictly going to be used for the preschool building? And originally, there was $750,000 awarded, and tonight it's stating the CDBG grant is $728,000, and August 2022, August 22nd of 2023, there's documentation in the agreement between the state and the city
Christy,
that
Christy.
yes, I'm almost finished. There's $725,000 listed and $727,000 listed. So which number is the correct one we're going to use? And then that's on page 139 in the agenda for for that date? And is the EDAC money being used as part of the preschool project? I know there's a lot of questions, but I just think we need to have clarification exactly what we're talking about regarding all the money that's going into it. I think it's a wonderful project, and I think it's exciting that the city and the county have both used resources to bring childcare to families and that opportunity. And I just thank you for the time, and I'm sorry I can't stay, but
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you, Chrissy.
getting the answers. So thank you very much.
Anyone else non-related to, oh, great. So moving on, anyone who would like to come forward on public comments regarding the agenda item B, which is the conditional use permit application at 1609 Woodland Terrace, that live within the 200 feet of that address, if you would like to come forward. Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry, we're a little unclear. Does she need to come forward and speak now, or will she speak later? If she is the person started applying for the conditional use permit?
I believe probably during this period, yes.
Okay.
But we do have someone that's coming up, so.
Very sure.
I know, sorry.
My name is Steve Enoch. I live at 1607 Woodland Terrace, and so we're right on the edge of their property line. So I just wanted to come today. We weren't able to be at the last meeting that was here, or the previous meeting. And so our names were on the petition, the original petition that got signed in opposition. And our primary concern was we were just confused primarily about what the whole zoning thing was. So we didn't understand what that was. We thought that the property was potentially going to be rezoned to like a business property. And so that's why we had signed the petition, and we were concerned about that. After the meeting happened, and had some conversations with people the next day, I kind of learned more about what was going on, what the conditional use application was about. And so we decided, my wife and I, we decided that next day, we called into the city, and we had our names removed off of the petition of opposition. And so I just wanted to say that's why we were on the list, was we were primarily concerned about the zoning of the property, and we just didn't understand what that was. Once we figured that out, we decided to take our name off of that list. I will say there were other people who were a part of that as well. So Brian Gordman, he wasn't able to be here, but he was someone I think is on the list as well who has who called in and said that they were also, that was their primary concern, was the issue on the zoning, and they requested that their name be removed as well. So
Great.
that was it.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Enoch. All right.
I was told that I was allowed to stand up
Yes,
here with
you are allowed, yes.
Hi,
By her. Did she give you permission?
please let him. I think he's the spokesperson here. I'm Sheena Cosman. I am the one that resides at 1609 Woodland Terrace, and I want to open up a in-home daycare there. I'm just going to give the same spiel that I kind of did last time. We have a large home with a large privacy fence backyard, a large driveway, enough for multiple cars to go into the driveway, and I don't think it'll affect traffic at all. I have 3 of my own kids, so just whatever makes up until, I can have 10 kids per one provider, so 3 of them are my own, and then like I would just have whatever's left at my home, so it wouldn't be too many cars. Yeah, that's it.
You can sit down. Hello, I'm Nick Cosman, 1609 Woodland Terrace. I have a lot of stuff here, but I'm not going to be able to read it all, so I'm kind of just going to wing it, so I apologize if it's kind of all over the place. We went ahead and started a petition ourselves as well. It was a lot more clear than the petition in opposition that strictly said that it was in
Can you
opposition.
like get in front of the, yeah, thank you.
The petition in opposition was strictly just, I am in opposition of a variance for a daycare. There was no further information on there. I'm not going to read through this because I only have 3 minutes, but there is a lot of information on this one. It says 685 right here. We have a couple handwritten signatures from some neighbors directly across the street from us who would probably be the most affected by traffic in that area. It has since went up. It's 711 signatures, primarily Pittsburgh residents and then some Crawford County residents. There are a few on here that are, Joplin or something like that. I can't really control who signed it. It was put online. I don't know what I need to do with this, but I'd like to provide it to the city.
Give it to
however
Tim.
I can.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am a veteran and a current member of local law enforcement, and I am here in support of my wife, who is fighting for her right to open a fully state licensed in-home daycare. Sheena has been licensed since October 1st, 2024. That is 3.5 months approximately that she has been fully licensed by the state for childcare in our home. Many in-home daycares in Pittsburgh don't get zoned by the city or don't even have licenses from the state, and the consequences of this have already been seen. My wife has followed all of these rules and regulations. Several different state employees have been in our home multiple times with zero issues. Like I said, I apologize. I'm going to kind of bounce around and skip a lot of this stuff I typed out. I will talk about the hours a little bit. That seemed to be the biggest concern some people had. It was actually addressed exactly 5 times in the zoning meeting, and people have still continued to this day to question it. One petitioner stated, "My specific concern is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week." He also advised that his concerns were abated if these were not the hours. I believe it is obvious that my wife will not be caring for children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But she is not. She does not want to be restricted by ridiculously strict hour regulations where any neighbor could call and complain because a parent is 10 minutes late. I'm sorry, what?
I think you got about, you're gonna have
Okay.
to, yeah, so hit the highlights.
Okay. I'm just going to finish out with 2 quotes that I think really mean a lot to this. Jay Byers was the first one. He was the Pittsburgh Deputy City Manager, at least when he made this quote. I don't know if he still is. He stated, "We've identified childcare as one of the major restrictions on our growth. It's hard to bring new people into town if we can't provide childcare for them. We estimate in Crawford County there's about an 1,100 seat shortage of childcare in the county." I think it's apparent that this is a good thing for the entire county. I would like to quote one other person who was a zoning committee member, Mr. Steve Scott. He said, "The thing we have to focus on is not the need or how a daycare is going to be, or how a daycare is going to be ran. It's where it's going to be that's really all we're supposed to talk about. We need more daycares, there is no doubt. But is this the appropriate neighborhood? Is this appropriate for the neighborhood?" He continued about how this safe neighborhood is not a good place for this daycare. I'll go ahead and end there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Hi.
Good evening. I am Kelly Comiskey Barnes. I reside at 1004 Village Drive. I would like to express my support for Sheena Cosman's Daycare at 1609 Woodland Terrace in Pittsburgh. I am a child care licensing specialist working directly with KDHE through the Crawford County Health Department. And the purpose of my job is to provide orientation, training, and education to those people that are interested in opening an in-home daycare, a child care center, a preschool, or an after-school program. Once somebody becomes licensed, I conduct annual inspections in their facility. I respond to and investigate any complaints that may arise, and I ensure that the children enrolled in care are safe in a safe and nurturing environment and are cared for by providers who are current in pediatric first aid and CPR, have completed a minimum of 16 annual training hours. Sheena has demonstrated that she is more than fully capable and qualified to operate this in-home child care program. She has passed her inspections, completed her 18-plus hours of training, and obtained her license with KDHE that was effective on October 1st, 2024. She has also passed inspection and obtained approval from the Kansas State Fire Marshal. Sheena is still currently working as an occupational therapist as she is awaiting approval for her conditional use permit in order to operate her in-home daycare. It is my hope that you will vote in support of quality licensed child care that's much needed in the city of Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Right, anyone else within the 200 feet? Did you
My name
receive
is,
a letter, Gary? Did
excuse
you-
me?
Did you receive a letter?
Yeah,
Okay. Yep, you're on the list.
okay, yeah, I'm 2 houses north of this,
Okay,
and, you know, I've thought about it, looked it over, all of this. I can't see a negative situation there. So, you know, I'm 2 houses away, even though my address is different. We're only 2 houses away from it. I think if these people want to do something like that, I think it's great. You know, it's been brought up 100 times already that we need childcare, and I don't need childcare, and I hopefully never do, but I would see it as a positive for the neighborhood if for somebody that does need childcare. So if you're looking for approval, I'm definitely in favor, so.
great.
You know, this is not Overland Park South, this is Galena North. So, on a good day. So, I can't see a negative effect in my neighborhood whatsoever, so I guess I support it.
Great, thank you, Gary. All right.
Thank you to the mayor and to the commissioners for the time. I'm Patrick Glover. I live at 1510 Woodland Drive. I live right next door to the Bishops. I don't know if I got a letter, but I'm like 4 houses down. May I speak?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't think you got a letter, but go ahead.
To give you a little background, I've lived in Pittsburgh since 2018. I grew up modest in Tulsa, and through persistent overtime work as a software developer, my wife and I kind of reached our, American dream living in this neighborhood. A quiet, beautiful neighborhood where I recognize my neighbors, and they are the best neighbors. And when my 12-year-old is out playing basketball, I don't worry. This has become even more important as I've recovered from cancer recently. For the record, I didn't sign any petition, and am somewhat neutral in this debate. I feel like a compromise could be reached, and I wish it would have been reached prior to this meeting. Here's my thoughts on the matter. I have empathy with the Cosmans, as I'm probably a lot like them socioeconomically. I also understand moving to a new neighborhood can be tough. The thought of working from home and being willing to watch other people's kids so that you can raise your own is admirable. But what I don't understand is why weren't neighbors consulted? Isn't that the good neighbor thing to do, even if it's difficult? Could we have come to a compromise and avoided this fiasco? Is it okay then to use a social media campaign to essentially dox some of my neighbors who had legit concerns, and especially the person running the campaign is a person of authority? Is that a conflict of interest? It's a little bit intimidating to me as a neighbor, and I'm not alone in that feeling, and I don't think you did it intentionally. I'm just pointing out the conflict of interest, in my opinion. I would ask the commission to define explicit regulations regarding business hours in the contract, even though it sounds like we're all on the same page, and maybe talk about the number of kids. I know there's the Kansas regulations of 10. It doesn't make sense in this situation. I think both sides could be happy if that happened. And then finally, I would ask the commission, have we thought about the long-term repercussions, especially when this has become so public? When I was moving to Pittsburgh years back and saw a news story regarding something like this, that would have weighed on my decision, right or wrong. What are the standards? And what are the effects on home values? Realizing this is just my opinion, I think it would harm them. Outside buyers looking with some of the same ideals I had for a quiet neighborhood are not going to want to move into a daycare. Maybe there won't be signs. Maybe it's not a big deal. I hope it's not. I just know that I work very hard for my home, and it's my main asset. So it matters a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well then I would open up to anyone else who would like to come forward.
I'm just going to read what I have written, which is very appropriate, I feel like. In the meeting,
the last meeting.
Oh,
Name
I'm
and
sorry.
address.
Heather Cosman, 108 West Carlton, Frontenac.
Okay,
I also
thanks.
a daycare there, so I understand the zoning regulations and the state regulations and all that goes with it.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. In the meeting, multiple opposing neighbors stated that Sheena should have come to them and asked them how they felt about the daycare, rather than following the required steps and paying a large fee to have the city send a letter outlining the exact plan to concerned parties, who then could have also reached out to her with questions. In 1995, a woman did just what the opposing neighbors said Sheena should have done, and she was told that they did not want a daycare in their neighborhood and they would fight the process. So she decided to open a daycare elsewhere and not even move into the neighborhood. If Sheena hadn't handled the situation properly and respectfully, she likely would have been persuaded in the same way. The opposer even stated in the meeting, on video, in public, and I quote, "Interesting enough, about 15 or 16 years ago, the house directly to the west of that house came with an application to do the same thing. Don't know if y'all knew that, did you? What do you think happened? It was denied." How many people have experienced this, something like this, in this neighborhood and in our community? This could likely be a contributing factor, for our community suffering the tremendous consequences of unlicensed and inadequate child care options. How can someone boast proudly about this? I don't know.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Wilborn, 1508 East Iron Avenue, Salina, Kansas. I work for Child Care Aware of Kansas. We're a statewide organization. And I just wanted to speak on behalf of Sheena Cosman to provide some benefits that her child care facility will bring to not only the neighborhood, but the community as a whole. One thing to note, this child care facility will help support working families. Child care options will help give them access to reliable, accessible child care, good quality child care. Because if they don't, a lot of times parents are forced to leave the workforce, which overall puts a strain on communities economically. So having more options, especially in neighborhoods, would greatly benefit working families. Also very convenient for families, the location of her home. They are within 2 miles from Westside Elementary School, 1.5 miles from George E. Nettles Elementary, and less than 1 mile from Lakeside Elementary School. Also in close proximity to many local businesses such as Mercy Hospital, about 2.5 miles, and Pittsburgh State University. So for those working families that, kind of take up a lot of those working spaces in the community, it's a very convenient location for many of them. Also, it helps build community. It brings parents, caregivers together, and gives them a sense of belonging and support, creates support networks within the community as well. Benefits for children, family child care facilities create kind of a home away from home feeling, as opposed to large centers. They kind of give it more of that one-on-one attention and, like I said, a home away from home for them, since they have a lower caregiver to child ratio. And also brings some security and safety in the neighborhood as well. It brings in more like family-friendly environments and things like that. And just some data that we've pulled from our organization. Only 50% of the childcare needs are being met in Crawford County at this time. The county is losing over $14 million due to families not having access to care, according to the Bipartisan Policy Center Child Care Gap Assessment. When our community coordinators compared that point in time data, a couple of things happened in the last year. Crawford County has moved from meeting 53% of needs to now 50%. They've lost 6 in-home providers, so that would have been 62 children lost full-time year-round care, lost 2 preschool programs, and lost 1 school-age program. And there are still 1,063 child care spots needing to be filled in the county as a whole. And Crawford is considered one of our highest need counties in the top 92% of the social vulnerability index and is a heavily underserved community. We show for that every one childcare opening, there are between 11 to 20 children under the age of 3 waiting for that spot. Lastly, we did pull some point-in-time data for Pittsburgh specifically and compared it to a similar size city, Hayes, same size and demographics.
And I'll need you to kind of wrap up.
Okay.
And I think the commissioners have the.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll leave it there, and then we just want to, as a last remark, if this provider is forced to shut down, it could impact several families, and it may result in parents having to exit the workforce, again, impacting the overall economic stability of the community. And we hope you vote in favor of having her continue her good work in her community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rihanna Nelson. My address is 1100 Southwest Wanamaker in Topeka, Kansas. I am with Child Care Aware of Eastern Kansas. I'm the Community Outreach and Engagement Manager. I cover 33 counties in Eastern Kansas, and Crawford happens to be one of those counties I cover. I work with communities that are looking to increase child care capacities. I'm here in support of Sheena for approval of her conditional use permit. I wanted to speak specifically to a point that was mentioned at the zoning hearing meeting in December. There was discussion around supporting childcare, but not in residential areas. There are many reasons why a small childcare business owner prefers to use their home to care for other children. However, the zoning board and many neighbors mentioned that renting a commercial space seemed to be a better alternative. In-home care is often more cost-effective for the provider than commercial-based care. Operating a home childcare generally involves lower overhead costs. Providers working from home do not need to rent or maintain that commercial space, which significantly reduces expenses related to utilities, property taxes, and facility upkeep. In-home childcare providers often have fewer children to care for, which means less administrative burden and more individualized attention for each child. The smaller scale allows for more efficient use of resources from their supplies to their time, resulting in a higher quality service without the need for extensive infrastructure. In addition to ongoing operating costs, commercial-based child care centers face significant expenses related to building updates and renovations in order to meet licensing regulations, fire codes, and other safety standards. These requirements often necessitate costly modifications to the physical space, including installation of fire suppression systems, specialized childproofing, updated electrical wiring, and accessible exits, all of which can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Operating from a private residence usually requires only minor modifications that are far less expensive than the major renovations needed for commercial spaces. If commercial spaces were easier, trust me, in-home providers would not be caring for other children in their homes. This reduction in initial and ongoing building-related costs further contributes to the overall cost-effectiveness of in-home child care for the provider. Removing the opportunity for residential in-home care in Pittsburgh would create a larger barrier in meeting the needs of Pittsburgh families needing child care to participate fully in the workforce and contribute to the local economy. I hope that when you guys are voting on this, that you take that into consideration and support Sheena. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone, I think after this gentleman, if there's anyone that has a different opinion, maybe in opposition, I'll give you the opportunity to come forward. Yes.
Dave Barnes, 1004 Village Drive, Pittsburgh countryside neighborhood. I've raised my kids and now they are raising kids. I've used in-home daycares and so do they. Neighborhood is always a major factor to consider. I live in a nice neighborhood with all ages of residents, from newborns to retirees. We have limited entrances, narrow curvy roads, and potholes. There are places where only one car can fit at a time. We have a church, a high school, and a gas station. I haven't seen many speed limit signs, if any. We work around these menial issues and continue to live in harmony. I have a neighbor I have never met in the 3 years they have been there. That is their choice. I had to get a variance for a building I wanted to put up, and that didn't change any zoning, just like this won't. I would welcome a daycare in our neighborhood. The supervision of the daycare is done by the state. How it is run is decided by the provider and approved by the state. They are strictly regulated. In-home care is more affordable, more cost-effective for everyone. Children get more attention, and there are fewer germs as compared to a center. If Mrs. Kosman were to look at renting another house to do this, it would make this venture fiscally unfeasible. If you're looking at a maximum of 5 additional cars coming and going, but you're also taking Mrs. Kosman's car out of the equation. So that would be a net of 4 cars additional. The math says that top end, you're gaining 30 minutes of extra traffic from those 4 additional cars 5 days a week. That's 130 hours a year, as compared to the Christmas lights that create maybe 5 hours of traffic in the evening for about 6 weeks, to make an additional 210 hours of traffic of hundreds of cars in a much smaller time frame. The lights are promoted and bring strangers in from everywhere. The daycare is just 4 cars of people that are known. They are going to a deputy sheriff's house. They will be in the neighborhood for a short time, transporting their loved ones and parking in a legal area according to the city ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone would like to speak with a different opinion?
Not a different opinion, but it's a slightly different perspective. My name's Logan Stensing. I live at 817 East Street in Iola, Kansas. I work for Thrive Kansas, which is a rural nonprofit where we focus a lot on advocacy work. I'm a policy coordinator there, so sorry, I'm pushing buttons here. The main, object of our work is to address the childcare crisis in Kansas. A lot of that, people focus on childcare slots, how can we make it available, but a lot of times what I've found is the root of our problem is on the childcare workforce, and us not undervaluing them or underappreciating how hard it is to do that work. And so one of the work that I also have served on is I've been a member of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel for the state of Kansas. That's underneath the Children's Cabinet. And we talked about how zoning ordinances can really be a burden on especially starting up home child care programs. And so like one of the stats that one of our colleagues, Jenna, was going to bring up about Hayes, the city of Hayes, their zoning ordinances are a lot more flexible and they have a lot more home programs than Pittsburgh does. And especially as someone that, when I started off my job connecting with providers and early childhood education programs across the state, I came to Pittsburgh. This is like one of the first towns I came to learn about the Family Resource Center. I was so inspired by the leadership that you all have taken to support childcare and early childhood for a very long time. And I think this is a really good opportunity for growth, especially, supporting Sheena, and just want to thank her for her service and for every provider that perseveres through all the regulations and the care that they have to provide. But I think there's some opportunity here to address those regulations, especially within zoning, to, not only address this issue, but hopefully just make it a better, more conducive to more childcare being and springing up in our community. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Hey Jay, would you mind clicking that up? Just, yeah. All right, yes.
I don't have an opposing view, but is it okay if I?
Yeah, is there anyone with an opposing view? Not to call you out, but I want to give everyone the opportunity. Okay, sure, come forward.
Hi, Andrea Scanio, 701 Lakeview Drive. I don't have anything prepared, but I had a childcare at my residence for a couple of years. I never ran into any issues with traffic. I also have a large driveway, just like they have. We live on the corner. I moved into our neighborhood and I didn't even know there was a daycare until a year in living there. I didn't even know it was there. I just thought they had really nice equipment outside. I probably have more cars in my driveway or on the street when I host Bible study and life group with my church, not from daycare. Daycare families are dropping off and they're going to work. They're not hanging out for hours. They're not filling up the roads. It's quick in and out. And at the end of the day, when they're picking up, they're leaving to go home. They're letting the providers get on with their lives too. So as far as the traffic goes, there were 2 daycares in my neighborhood at the same time. The daycare was 2 houses from me. I didn't even know it was there for a while. There's also other, I believe there's like in-home health kind of businesses in our neighborhood. They honestly have a lot more traffic than a daycare. There's ambulances, and not complaining about that at all, but there's a lot more traffic and noise and things to complain about with those kind of businesses than a daycare, but it's still sorry, a minuscule kind of inconvenience compared to just knowing there's people there, seeing people for people and not as an inconvenience. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pro or con? Either way at this point. Well,
Hi, my name is Rosanna West. I live at 605 East 29th Street in Pittsburgh. I am one of those parents that came across the need for childcare a couple years ago. I raised my granddaughter, and at the time, her other grandmother could watch her while I went to work. Well, when that ended very abruptly, and I was left with nothing. So, in my search, I called every, in-home daycare in town, licensed, all the things, the center. I even tried, just trying anything, because I needed it immediately. Everybody was full, everybody had a wait list. So for about 2.5 months, I either had to miss work or I had to take my granddaughter with me. Now granted, in my job, I'm the director of New Hope Services. I had a little more flexibility, thank God. Not every parent's gonna have that, A lot of that was gonna happen and they're gonna get fired or they're gonna have to quit. So thankfully, Heather, back here, Sheena's mother-in-law, she had a daycare, and of course she couldn't take her at the time either. But eventually something worked out where at least I was on a drop-in basis. I was thankful for that. So I just want to put that out there that childcare is definitely needed. I have felt that struggle. So
Thank you. All right. In the interest of time, is there anyone that has a different perspective? All right.
Hi, my name is Bob Cyphers. I live at 1512 Woodland Terrace. I talked to several of you, and I hope you watched the planning and zoning meeting. I think there were some things set out there, and I don't have time to go back through those, but early in my career, I was an appraiser, and I have in front of me a terminology book that's put out by the Appraisal Institute, which is the largest professional organization of real estate appraisals. They do most of the certifications and education for appraisers. In appraising, you make adjustments for value and negatives and positives. Depreciations comes into play there, and there's 3 types of depreciation. There's physical, which is pretty obvious if a house needs a roof or painted badly, the siding's peeling, those types of things. Floorings needs replaced. Functional deals to the floor plan, maybe the adequacy of the heating and air. But the third one's economic depreciation, also known as economic obsolescence. And I'm going to read what this says. Economic obsolescence is caused by changes external to the property, such as neighborhood infiltrations of inharmonious groups or property uses. When we had the planning and zoning, it's really not about daycare. This is a business. And a business is what they're talking about here because it doesn't go with the zoning of the neighborhood. The zoning is R1 residential. So does that have an effect on value? Probably so, particularly properties that are across the street, right beside it, or near it. In this little kind of a circle of an area, there's roughly 20 homes, and I think a conservative value of those homes would probably be $5 million. Now, houses closest to this is, again, a depreciation because of what you're bringing into the neighborhood, not harmonious with what is there. Let's say that there's a 7% adjustment made to the value of that house. Let's say you get a couple houses away and it's 5%. Let's get a little bit further when it's 2%. So let's use 5%, 25 million, or on $5 million. That's $250,000. I would be concerned if I was right across the street or right next door or whatever, to what that does to my property value. I think that has to be looked at. I don't think their intent is to affect people's value in their property. Another gentleman said, and I didn't say this, the largest investment most people will ever make is in their home. I think we have to protect the value of those homes. And I'll go further, this isn't just our neighborhood, any residential neighborhood. You could have, this kind of sets a precedence to what can happen. I think you have to look at that awfully hard. We don't want to do something that affects people's home value.
Okay, thank you, Bob. All right, well, one more, and then we'll close public comments.
I know so many of you. I am Linda Russell. I live right outside of Pittsburgh on East 8th. So I'm just a few feet out of the city limits, and I am a child care provider. I'm not just a child care provider, I am a child care provider. After having many years of a very lucrative business, I decided this is what I want to do, and I do it because I love it. I have an in-home daycare. I have been on the board of some invitations on some of this other big projects that were going on, the Washington School early on when that was getting started. I listened to those original men talk about
Excuse me,
pecking.
gentlemen.
Pardon?
Yeah, would you like to take your conversation outside, or, thank you.
Sorry.
I've heard some, well, I'm going to get to, because we're on a time limit, some
You're fine.
things that I find that are, where people are kind of crossing their words. One was, and I say this trying to be as sympathizing as I can. I know there, Mr. Wood's wife has an issue with sound. You live on a very loud corner of Pittsburgh with the highway right around there. I'm sure those sirens come blaring through there. I was fortunate to have a neighbor beside my daycare who is a dean of the college in the English department that actually is a published poet. And he wrote a book, or he's in a book with his poetry, and he signed the book for me, and in this poetry is about the children's noise coming and listening to it, and his wife are sitting out drinking their coffee, and he handed me this book before they left town. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Did my kids bother you?" He said, "Absolutely not. We enjoyed every minute of hearing them outside." One of the conflicts that I'm hearing is that this is going to be so noisy with kids. Your kids are not outside all day. You don't have that kind of luxury. My kids would be outside every day, all day if they could. You're outside part of the day. They take naps, which takes up a good portion of your day. They do other stuff and things in the house. So you're not going to have that noise all day, and you're not going to have the traffic. I guarantee you, I've been doing this for over 15 years. My friend back here has been doing it a lot longer than I have. It just doesn't happen to be a lot of traffic. My road is very narrow. I can look out my kitchen window and I know there's a car coming down the street because this car has almost come to a dead stop. I don't have any sides you can go off to. We have ditches. It's called courtesy. I don't have a parent that would ever worry about driving crazy up our street. I have a big driveway. Nobody needs to ever park on the street. Sheena doesn't have to worry about having traffic, stopping any of you parking on her street. Your parents come in, you do fast goodbyes and long hellos. That's what we typically do. There's just a lot of the stuff until you see it happening, you're going to say, oh, well, that's not so bad anyways. But if she's got to run a business with eyeballs on her the whole time and people taking notes when her people come and go, that's not fair either. Because the people that run businesses don't want that for their own business. And so I find a lot of things that are being kind of contradictory. And the noise of the kids playing, and then I listened to the past meeting where my friend back here, the Enoch's children were kind of squealing, and at times they could hear it. But then they also played out in the front of this man's house playing football. You don't play football very quietly either, so it's either they are noisy or they're not noisy. But for some reason, it's all okay.
Linda, I'm going to ask you to...
Pardon?
I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Yeah. Anyway, you're not going to have the issues that you guys are all fearing, and it does hurt Pittsburgh. And I will say, I have parents that never want their kids in a big center. They like home daycare. That's what they want, and that's what I provide. And I provide daycare for teachers.
Great. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead.
I'll be real quick. I just want to, and it'll be
pertinent towards the ordinance and the family daycare situation. So, my name's Autumn Carroll. My address is 121 West 510th Avenue. I'm just here because after watching the December 16th meeting, I started like looking at the ordinances and stuff online. And so the grounds for denial of a conditional permit for a business on here, Cosmans don't meet that at all. Like they have, their application they were never committed a felony or anything. They have an application that has not been made with false statements. The finance director determines the business or the property in which the business is housed. They're putting conditions on it as the time from 7:30 to 5:30 or 8 to 4:30, I believe, on Friday. I could be wrong on that. I haven't. Don't quote me. But that was established at the last zoning meeting. That was the only thing that was really a big issue. The applicant has engaged in or created or maintained or suffered either a public nuisance or defined conditions with the operation of a license or sorry, that one's not the right one. The permittee has failed to pay business licenses, taxes, and she's completely licensed. So up here, when it says procedures for conditions, it says limitations upon hours, which we've already established, requirement that the business provide licenses. She's already has all of her state licenses. Provisions for adequate off-street parking. They have demonstrated that they have a large enough driveway for those 4 people. Their cars are all off-street parking, even if they were all home. The installation of an on-site improvements required to prevent operations of business from disturbing its neighbors at a particular location. So they have a very large fence, they have a very large yard. These children are not going to be out close to the street bothering these neighbors.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Closing public comments. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts. We'll move into the consent agenda. I don't think there was anything that the commissioners wanted to pull off, so I would entertain a motion to.
So move to approve.
Moved by Stu, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Brooks?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
McNay?
Yes.
Munsell?
Yes.
Sigley?
Yes.
Motion carries. Consider the following. Conditional use permit, 1613 North Walnut. Consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission Board Zoning of Appeals to approve the request submitted by Constanza for conditional use permit to allow a church at 1613 North Walnut.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, at the December 16th meeting by Jose Costanza, that conditional use came with a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board to approve, and it was unanimous. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any opposition from those 200 feet?
No.
If there's no, somebody make a motion to approve?
Not yet.
All right, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Chuck, seconded by Cheryl to approve the conditional use permit for 1613 North Walnut. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item B, conditional use permit, 1609 Woodland Terrace. Consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals to approve the request submitted by Sheena Cosman for a conditional use permit to allow an in-home daycare at 1609 Woodland Terrace.
At that same meeting, Commissioners, the Planning and Zoning Board did hear this application, and the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board was to approve. It was a 4-2 vote with 1 absent. Again, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is the license current? Is your license current?
So I have a template.
I saw something in here that something ended in December on a provisional license.
I had to ask for an extension because of all of this, so it is now extended until March 31st.
So have you received
She
the
had to
extension?
get an extension on the temp license because she can't get her full license until this whole thing is over. So her temp license that the state had to renew, which they typically don't have to do that, they renewed it until March 31st.
Okay.
I have several questions, but I want to make a comment before I get into questions. You know, over this issue, I've received numerous calls. I'm sure we all have. And I've responded to every one of them, whether it was a phone call, message, text message, or email. And I encourage those on both sides to come and be heard. I think that's what should happen. And unfortunately, along the way, well, I heard a gentleman say that the Costmans should have came to the neighborhood and asked permission from the neighbor, the blessing to proceed. I don't think that was a requirement that they had to do. But on to the same issue, this thing blew up on Facebook. I'm not a Facebook person, but there were comments made on Facebook about people that lived in the neighborhood. And I don't appreciate those comments. Some of them were that the people that lived there didn't like kids, and I know for a fact that's not true. So unfortunately, you know, we are living in a time so you can get on social media or mailers, whatever, and send these out and talk about people. I don't like Facebook, I like face-to-face. You know, if you got a problem, there's both sides of this issue. Come to the meeting, like I suggested, and be heard. That's how it should be. Having said that, I do have some questions, and I think they were answered, but I want to ask them again. I know one of the concerns was the hours of operation. So tell me about the hours of operation.
She had stated in the planning and zoning meeting that she'd be open Monday through Thursday, 7:30. Please correct me if I am wrong. 7:30 to 5, and Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. Is that correct?
So can I ask if there's a situation, say a parent has car troubles, or they're required to work overtime, is there any flexibility in this pickup time? Could there be?
I would think we would have to.
All right, that's answered. Yeah, the number of children at this facility.
She stated she's allowed to have 10, 3 of those are hers, so that would be 7 children.
Any infants?
Infants would count as 2.
Now, I know some concerns are out there that maybe there'll be more children added to this 10 that she's had a license to provide. So if that happens,
The state regulates that.
okay, she'd have to go back to the state for that.
Correct.
And I heard this too, because I know I've done this myself on, state comes down, state fire marshal inspects daycares yearly. A member of the fire department goes with them, not for inspection, just to get a layout of what the facility might look like if it was on fire. My other question is, are there other daycares in town that operate out of their residence?
Yes, there is. Since 1997, there's been 25 come through here.
And out of that 25, how many have been approved?
22.
22? So, and I understand people are concerned about their value of the homes. And I get that. I don't know if this will decrease the values or not, but you gotta consider, you have 22 operating in houses around town. You know, they have the same issues, but they were approved. So, that's all the questions I have. Good answer, thank you.
Anyone else with questions for Dexter?
It's not a question, it's just I think this is one of the most highly regulated businesses, if you will, whether it be in-home or not, that anyone could venture into, as I'm sure you can attest to, the process and the certifications you have to go through to get that. So I think that should be of some comfort. I understand the neighbors are upset about it and concerned, but just the hoops that you have to jump through to get to the point that you are right now is case in point that this is taken very serious by a lot of people other than, this isn't just your family deciding to have a daycare. I mean, there are a lot of checks and balances. And I think that's important going forward to anybody else thinking about this, that they go through the same steps that you go through. And we do go through the process of being licensed to do this, not just, hey, I'm going to watch my neighbor's kid or I'm going to watch my family member's kid, and then that turns into 4 or 5 other things. So I do commend you for doing that right, and having proper certified childcare in Pittsburgh. So that's all I have.
I have one other question. There are no fire issues here as far as
State
trucks
Fire
getting in
Marshal
and
has
out
already
or
been
anything
in
like
and
that,
inspected
right?
it.
Okay.
There are people in the state of Kansas that have approved everything she's doing. lot of times trusting and verifying any information that you put out there, whether you're for or against something, that should hold a lot of weight on things. One thing that really bothered me the most is that children negatively affect a neighborhood. I just find that absurd. Children are our greatest asset. Every one of us was a kid at one time. I know myself with my children, my grandchildren, I have a business. My kids have always came to work with me. And my grandchildren are there with us working too. And we just absorb it in our day. And I know it's different in a neighborhood, but I have never once had any bad idea of a daycare being in a neighborhood, because the kids are what are our future. And how can kids be bad? I mean, they're going to play, they're going to run and jump. And I know a lot of my best memories was the people in our neighborhood, and we were kids riding our bikes all around, and everybody knew everybody, and it's not the way it is anymore. And even the people in my neighborhood, there's 80-some houses. Our kids, I mean, we didn't have to ask our neighbors for permission to do anything, but if a neighbor needed something, we were helping them. If a neighbor needed an ambulance, as of the other night in my neighborhood, all of our neighbors were on the phone going, what do we got to do to help these people? And our road is narrow too, so there are a lot of narrow roads in this town. But it's just a matter of how people look at it. I am for this daycare. I think it got out of hand here. I know people have opinions, but there's just a lot of things I just don't understand. Nothing in the zoning here. This is not a zoning issue at all. It's a conditional use permit. And I'm for it.
The last thing I'd say, and Commissioner Munsell mentioned it, and I think it's unfortunate the turn that the social media campaign took. I think that blew up a bridge, and I think neighbors being good neighbors should try to build more bridges rather than blowing them up. So moving forward, I don't know how you fix that. If you can fix that, but, you know, I understand, I guess I know why you did it. I'm not gonna say I understand why you did it. But, and yes, I've heard somebody mention it was public, you know, public information. Yes, that's true, but, you know, I just caution you to, you know, everybody needs to be good neighbors in whatever neighborhood you live in. And let's think about that before we blow that bridge up, so.
So I did, as you know, up until October, lived in a neighborhood where there were 2 child care facilities, yes, 2 memory homes, and at one point a woman was doing hair out of her plate, so nobody cared. There wasn't, you know, there wasn't traffic. You just, you know, in the mornings when you go around the curve, you got to be a little careful. I also reached out to our county treasurer in terms of the depreciation question for housing, because that comes up a lot with any issue. And the comment that I got back from our treasurer is that's really hard to prove. It's, you know, it's really hard to prove, to say that an in-home child care provider will depreciate the households around, or the housing around the neighborhood, so.
Madam Mayor, I call the question.
All right, is there a motion to approve the conditional use permit for?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Chuck, seconded by Cheryl. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to C, disposition of bids, Washington's preschool project. Consider the staff recommendation to award the bids for the Washington School. You're free to leave if you want to. Don't feel like you need to stay. Consider staff recommendation to award the bids for the Washington School preschool project.
Feel like we're continuing a theme here, Mayor and Commissioners.
You need to speak up.
I guess so. We'll do this. Feel like we're continuing a theme here.
Let's just wait like.
Yeah, give a few minutes.
That's most of them, Jay.
All right, you're on.
I'm starting to feel like I'm not popular.
Yeah, sorry, Jay.
They're almost gone.
Now they're going to chat.
Maybe they need to close the door.
Shut the door, yeah.
Still there? Yep.
I think you're good.
Are we ready? Mayor and Commissioners, this item was on the agenda about a month ago at our last meeting of the year. At the time, there was some concern that the bid, not all the bids had been accepted. We do now have all the bids in place to continue with the Washington Preschool project. I think it's important to recognize that this is not a city project. This is a project by the Community Development Corporation Point Forward. The city's involvement is due to the fact that it is required to be the acceptor of the CDBG funding, and because of that, the process for acquiring bids must follow the federal government regulations for bidding. And the city has indeed followed those, finally got all the bids in. We've had a very difficult time getting complete bids for all of this. We were allowed through CDBG, through conversations with them, to break the bids up into smaller pieces that we thought could be more easily bid out, and that has been the case. We were successful in getting the rest of the bid components successfully achieved. And so what we're looking to now is to get those bids approved, and then so we can start building the preschool.
So, working through the Department of Commerce is pretty rigorous. Yeah.
Indeed.
So some, I guess to address maybe one of the concerns brought up in public comments. I mean, it's not, they just don't hand you a check and say, go. You have to check in, and it's very rigorous.
There are many steps we have to go through, and we have to get approvals all along the way. A lot of forms to fill out. It's a daunting, when you look at the bid package that you put out for any kind of a CDBG project, it's pretty daunting. I mean, I can't really blame the bidders that when they see all of the forms that they have to fill out and the processes that they have to follow to be a successful contractor with the federal government. It's pretty daunting. But we feel finally that we were able to get all the bids structured.
Any questions for Jay?
No, I'll just say I was one of the ones that wanted to see all the bids, and now that they're in, I have no problem approving it.
Second.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Moved by Chuck, seconded by Stu. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Neighborhood Advisory Council appointments. Consider staff recommendation to appoint 2 individuals to fill unexpired terms as members of the Neighborhood Advisory Council, with 1 new member representing the northeast quadrant of Pittsburgh and the other new member representing the southeast quadrant of Pittsburgh, effective immediately and concluding on December 31st, 2025. I believe you have ballots at your place.
There's 2 there.
You don't have your assistant counter.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
Handy stuff in.
you have to do the math on your own.
I'm not good at math. I think you want to hear from the city.
Camera that was recorded.
I'm not good at counting votes. Let's go.
Pam, I didn't even let you say anything.
Hi.
I didn't even let you say
Hello.
anything. Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for voting.
Okay. Do you have extra ballots?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, we just need to do. So for the first group of candidates for the Northeast, would you please either vote for Kathy Kincaid or Robert Mernon again? Must be Missouri. Okay, I'll ask that you do this separate, so it looks like we have a majority for Robert Mernon for the Northeast representative, so if you could move and
Yeah.
take the appropriate action, and then we'll get to the other one.
So, the ballots indicate that to accept Robert Murnan to represent the Northeast Quadrant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Ron, seconded by Stu. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the second?
And if you could do the same thing for the Southeast Representative, Chad Como, please.
Okay.
Move
There-
to Chad as the representative.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Stu, seconded by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Robert Murnan and Chad Como. Thank you, Kim. You're welcome. We don't really have non-agenda items on the agenda,
But we should.
do you have any? Sorry, Danny.
So Henry's gone, we can do whatever we want.
Okay.
Yeah, no, one brief one, wow, it seems like 2 months ago, we introduced the City Housing Incentive Program to you all. You voted favorably, and so we headed to the county, and the county was gracious and listened to us and approved it as well. And then yesterday, Kim and I headed over to the USD 250 where they also approved it, so it is now official. Just wanted to make sure we've tasked our staff to put out something on the website so people can understand what the application form is, where they would access it and how the process works. So I wanted to thank you and both of those entities for their leadership, and hopefully, and definitely need to acknowledge the staff's efforts and many others that helped us kind of architect that. But I think it's an opportunity to grow Pittsburgh, get more houses built for the people that need them, and hopefully builders are out there listening and will take advantage of that program. If they have any questions, please contact the city. And thank you all for your leadership on that. And I don't think we have.
Does Matt have?
Matt is here with some, almost forgot Matt. How could I do that?
We lost our whole audience, but hey, last week Greg and I went up to the Kansas Ready Mix Association, and we were able to get an award for the Municipal Concrete Award. American Concrete submitted it, and it was a project designed by Earls Engineering, and Sprouse out of Lamar did it for us. So anyways, it's kind of a neat deal. Just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of bring it to your attention. So
Congratulations.
Yep.
Good job.
Congrats, Matt.
Thanks for the snow removal too.
Kim's
Yeah.
mouthing something.
We just wanted to thank those that were involved with our emergency warming center at Homer Cole, our volunteers. We were able to keep almost 30 people over the 4 days out of the below freezing temperatures. So we just want to thank the team there and anybody that helped us out, the county, and our management team at Homer Cole. So we appreciate that. And then we are working on an alternate location as well for if the temps drop that low again. So
Great. Thank you for all your effort.
You bet.
It was
thank you.
your leadership and Darren's leadership. Anything else? Move to adjourn.
We're out.
Did you have something? No?
I think there was a motion and a second. I don't know who made it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for hanging in there for public comments. I think that was important.